So yeah, we continue our series. If you remember last week, or if you weren't here, Mr. Bob, we started the Advent series that we're going to be doing. And so last week was the Candle of Hope. And I know that's kind of weird to start before Thanksgiving, but this week we'll finish with Christmas. So today we're going to continue with the Candle of Peace. Kind of loud, isn't it? All right. Do y'all remember the story how the Grinch stole Christmas? Raise your hand if you do. Isn't it like a good time story? Yeah, I mean, how many of you have to read that like every year? It's a good one, right? You know, the Grinch is this guy who likes to live in seclusion up on a hill, and he's watching down in Whoville, right? And if I was prepared, I tried to print off this story. I was going to read a little bit to you, but I couldn't do it. But anyway, he was really mad and bitter over all the people in Whoville with their joy and their noise and their food and just the celebration of Christmas, right? And so as he planned, his master plan is to go in and to steal everything, and he's going to stop Christmas. But he doesn't succeed, right? He ends up failing miserably. Even with no presents and no lights and no trees, they still celebrate Christmas. And as I was reading that story and just kind of thinking, I was like, you know, that's actually kind of somewhat true of what happened in the Bible. Anybody have a clue who tried to stop Christmas? King Herod. You see, King Herod, that is really loud. You know what? I'm going to turn this off. Can y'all hear me? Good. I like to talk louder anyway. Okay, so King Herod, he was a dude who you did not want to mess with, right? He was pretty powerful stuff. Matter of fact, what he did as his time as a king was really impressive. He rebuilt the temple. He made he made huge palaces and cathedrals and stuff like that. That is still standing today. King Herod was a powerful guy. He did not want to lose his kingdom. He was known for taking any measure necessary to protect his kingdom or his rule of authority. Matter of fact, it says that he even killed one of his wives and killed one of his sons to make sure, because he thought that they were a threat and they were going to try to come over and take over his kingdom. And so he eliminated that. He took that out. Pretty crazy stuff. I mean, what kind of king does that to his own family? He was a ruthless guy, but he was smart and clever. He won many battles. He knew how to listen and to get the insight of his opponent. A very strategic kind of guy. Someone who you would want to be in charge of, to rule an army, the way that he thought. And of course, as we read here in Matthew 2, you can go ahead and turn there if you have your Bibles, chapter 2 in Matthew. We're gonna start there. We're actually going to read the whole chapter today, so bear with me. But it's pretty an amazing story as we take off, and how crazy King Herod was, and how he wanted to. He didn't know it at the time, but he was trying to stop the meaning of Christmas. How he was trying to take out Jesus, baby Jesus. All right. As you're turning there, I have another little clip, and this one is done off of the Skit Guys. So it's kind of an idea of what it would have been like back then. All right, go ahead, Sam.
Are they here?
As your advisor, I feel compelled to communicate my hesitation about this meeting. Do you even know these men?
We do not.
So why even take a meeting with them? They are stargazers. They are Gentiles.
These men have valuable information. If we play our cards right, they will help us infinitely more than we can help ourselves. Send them in.
Gentlemen, greetings. Welcome. Welcome.
My staff tells me you've come a long way.
This is true. We've come from the east.
Is that right? And I trust your journeys have not been too difficult.
They're like most journeys. Some good, some bad, but mostly long.
So tell me, as a man who doesn't do much journeying myself anymore, what is it that would inspire men such as yourself to undertake such a long trip?
Well, as I'm sure you know, word has been spreading about the birth of a Messiah. We witnessed his star, and so we have come to worship him.
Is that right? A new Messiah. I must admit, I feel a little silly. This is the first I'm hearing of this.
It's said to be in a place called Bethlehem. Do you know where we can find this place?
Lucky for you, Bethlehem is only about 10 miles away.
10 miles. Ah, that's such a relief. After so many miles, 10 seems just around the corner.
Isn't that the truth? I know you're eager to resume your journey and witness this new Messiah firsthand, but please, before you go, allow me to be a good host and offer you a drink.
To the Messiah.
To the new King. Would you do me a favor?
Of course.
Once you have found this new king, would you come back and tell me exactly where he is so that I might have the opportunity to go and worship him myself?
Consider done, King Herod.
Safe travels.
So dramatic. All right, thank you. So now you have kind of seen this kind of clip of what we're going to be talking about. We're going to start off reading in chapter 2, verse 1. First, it just says this. I love this. It says, Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea. Right there in itself is just an amazing miracle. That you have Jesus, the Son of God. Let's don't take that for granted. This is not your average baby. This is not my Wyatt or Savannah. I mean, Jesus, the Son of God, the Savior of mankind, was born to Mary, a virgin birth. All right? Right there should blow us away. During the reign of King Herod, about that time, some wise men from the eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem asking, "Where is the newborn king of the Jews? We saw the star as it rose, and we have come to worship him." Okay, we're going to stop there. There's so much stuff. As I was studying this past week, in between my helpings of turkey and stuffing, it was really incredible to kind of learn a little bit about this. Sam, go to the next slide, please. If you see, this is a map of the Middle East. Middle East country right now. If you the right star or arrow, if you will, is pointing next to Babylon. Okay, and it is believed that these men came from Babylon. Right? And there's nothing really to prove that. It just says to the eastern lands of Jerusalem and Bethlehem. And so if you go east, that's where that's at. But biblical scholars believe that's where they came from. Okay. Now, if you go to the left, you see the next arrow over there, and that is pointed next to Jerusalem and Judea. Okay, that right there is the two destinations. That's where they started on the right and where they ended on the left. Okay, now trade routes that a lot of people used back then would actually have them coming out of Babylon. We know from maps how they entered that they came in actually from the north and went south. But there's a main trade route that actually heads northwest and then over to Damascus and then comes straight down next to the Dead Sea where Jerusalem and Bethlehem would be at. Okay? If they would have taken that route, which I doubt they would have, would have taken anywhere between 700 and 800 miles. All right? Now, they followed the star. We're going to get to that in a minute. They followed the star of Bethlehem, and so I don't believe they took that. I actually believe they cut trail. I could be completely wrong, but anyway, that's my personal opinion. And so, to say that they, when it says that the wise men, we're going to go back, it says here, about that time soon, the wise men from the eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem. All right? That in itself is a huge deal and a major view of what these men were like. Now, I want to blow a little idea that you have in your head. How many wise men do you think there were? 3. Everyone, yeah, of course, 3 wise men. Everyone says that. You know, there's 3 wise men. Well, actually, did you read that when we just read that? That it said there was 3 wise men? It says, about that time, some wise men from the eastern lands arrived in Jerusalem. There is no scripture backing up that there were 3. It is believed through tradition and through ideas that it was 3 because of the 3 gifts that they later bring to Jesus: gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Okay? Some Bible scholars believe there was 20 men. Some believe there was 2. We know it's plural, so there had been more than 1, but we actually don't know if there was 3. Okay? The idea of 3 is just tradition, and it's a fine tradition. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing biblically wrong with that idea. But anyway, we're not exactly sure how many men there were. Now let's paint a picture for you, okay? When they get out of Babylon, let's say that they did come out of Babylon. We're not 100% sure, but let's just say for the sake of argument they did. They didn't get in there. They didn't go to the local airport there and get in their nice, comfortable Lear jet, cruising altitude of 40,000 feet. Going about 500 miles an hour to get to Bethlehem, right? No! That would have been nice. They would have really enjoyed that. But no, what they did is they actually got on some camels. It's probably what they used. That was the modern animal that they took besides horses back then. And they probably got on their camel and took off. Okay? Now, for you and me, that's like, okay, that's cool. You know, say you're there. And they come up to you and they're like, hey dude, let's go. There's the star showed up. And we're gonna go and see this baby Jesus. Well, dude, how do you know that there is a baby Messiah being born? Well, because the star appeared. See, it says magi in scriptures, and magi could mean magicians, or actually they called them stargazers. And it's cool to think back then that they would actually just look up into the sky and notice the stars. I mean, they studied them. Matter of fact, that's why they knew that something big had happened, because all of a sudden, boom, there's this great big old star, the Star of Bethlehem, who appeared. And that's why the Magi believed that something big had happened at Jesus. You know, it's pretty cool that we take the stars and stuff for granted. When we were in Alaska for 5 years, it was, you know, a dream of ours, and we got to fulfill it a lot, was to see the Northern Lights, right? Raise your hand if you've ever seen the Northern Lights. Wow, that's pretty impressive. Very good. You know, they're an amazing sight to see. And I remember the first night we got to see them, we were, it was middle of the night, and it was kind of the idea, me and Sam took turns, if you would roll over and get up, go look outside and see if you see them. And so this one night, Sam yells out, "They're going!" Of course, I'm dead asleep, you know, snoring, and I'm like, what's going? The Northern Lights. Jump right up, go out there, and you see it. It's just the most coolest thing you've ever seen if you haven't. You stand outside, especially when they're in Alaska, they're right above you. And a really good night, they're not green. Green is the most common. It's like reds and whites and blues occasionally. But you just stand up there and you're like, ah. You know, and after like 40 minutes, you're like, my neck really hurts. And it's 45 below zero. But hey, it was really cool to look out there and to see that. The same thing with these guys. They were outside and they just studied the stars. And so they believed when God was doing something really big on earth, He would show it in the heavens. And that's just a really cool idea. So they say, all right, guys, let's go. The star appeared. We need to go track this. Come on, let's go. Well, how long is this going to be? Oh, I don't know. Oh. Where are we going? Well, I don't know. It's pointed west. Let's go. You want to get on a camel and just truck west until we find the end of this? Are you crazy? But no, they weren't like that. They're like, all right, let's do it. So, okay, play with this idea for a little bit. You're like, sure, this is cool. There's something big going on. All right, so we're going to go jump on the camels, and we're going to go take a little ride in the outback, you know, out in the deserts. And I mean, let's look at it. There's a whole bunch of nothing in between those two towns. deserts, some mountains, a couple of rivers here and there, some creeks, not a whole lot of nothing. And I could imagine that week 1, maybe week 2, this was a cool idea. Yeah, this is fun, man. Get out of the city, see some new stuff, let's roll. But then, as the days and the weeks continued, I would imagine that this would have gotten pretty old fast. I mean, think about this. You're like, dude, we've been out here for a couple of weeks already, and you're telling me that we're just still trucking away following this star, that we don't know where it goes for all we know, and what's at the end of it? That's a pretty cool faith, isn't it? To have that kind of faith to go jump on a camel and ride, believing that the Messiah was on the end of it. I think we take that for granted. I mean, that's huge. Now, if they followed the path, like I said earlier, which I really believe they didn't, it would have been 700 to 800 miles on a camel. If they would have went straight across, it would have been a little quicker. So anyway, biblical scholars believe it took them roughly a year to 2 years to do this. We have an idea that usually when you hear of the baby Jesus being born in the stable and in the manger and all that the wise man just walked right on in. Hey guys, what's going on? There he is! No, not the case at all. And I'll actually prove another reason why I believe that. But I wanted to paint you a really good picture of what these magi would have been like and what kind of faith it would have had to have done this. Not no easy task, not no day's journey. When they got to King Herod, yeah, they were done. They were tired. They had been on the road for a very long time. So let's keep reading now that we're only in verse 2. All right, so so they've seen the star as it rose, and we have come to worship him. That was the end of verse 2, okay? Verse 3, King Herod was deeply disturbed when he had heard this, as everyone in Jerusalem. He called a meeting for the leading priests and the teachers of the religious law and asked, where is this Messiah supposed to be born? In Bethlehem in Judea, they said, for this was the prophet that wrote, and you, O Bethlehem, in the land of Judea, are not least among the ruling cities of Judea. For a ruler will come from you, who will be the shepherd for my people Israel. Now you got this huge dictator, you got King Herod right here, who loves being in control, loves being the big kahuna, the big guy. I rule all of this. These are my people, this is my stuff. Think about what that would do to him. And naturally in verse 7, then Herod called for a private meeting with the wise men, and he learned from them the time when the star first appeared. See, for me, I'm thinking, if I was King Herod, just right there alone would make me so mad. It would be surprising for me to read that King Herod tried to kill him. But he didn't. Matter of fact, this is where King Herod is smart. And this is where he plans his attack. He comes in, he wants to learn from these guys. So he brings in the private meeting and he says, okay. Then he told them, this is King Herod talking, go to Bethlehem and search carefully for the child. All right? And when you find him, come back and tell me so that I can go and worship him. Okay? Smart. You tell me exactly where you are, and I will later not tell you, but I'm going to go take him out. That's his idea. Okay? So you go worship him, I'm going to lie to you and say, I will come and I want to worship this baby Messiah too. All right? He wants to take out this threat. But that's not the case. Verse 9, after this interview, the wise men went their way, and the star they had seen in the east guided them to Bethlehem. Okay? It went ahead of them and stopped over the place where the child was. Again, just amazing to see. How many of you followed a star and then it just stopped? How many of you ever followed a star? That's crazy. Oh, you have? John? Oh, okay. Okay, part of military. Okay, that's good. But to follow a star in the sky and then to have it stop. I mean, that's incredible. That stuff you read and we just kind of take for granted. Think about that. I mean, that's huge. They've been following a star for a very long time, and all of a sudden it just stops. Matter of fact, a little side note, and I'm not saying it's fun to watch this and get this guy's perspective. I'm not saying I totally agree with it, but there's this movie called The Star of Bethlehem. And this guy who does a really good job of taking space, and he kind of believes that the stars and planets and everything is kind of like, it's like moving. And so it's kind of like a movie, it's just going. And then, so he takes it from NASA and kind of rewinds back to the day around Jesus' time and kind of gives an explanation of what he thinks created the Star of Bethlehem. Really fascinating stuff. Not sure I agree totally with it, but anyway, if you ever get a chance, check it out. So, pretty crazy stuff. Star stops, okay? Stopped over the place where the child was. Verse 10, when they saw the star, they were filled with joy. They entered the house and saw the child with his mother, and they bowed down and they worshipped him. All right, again, they entered the house, not the stable, not the inn, the house. All right. Actually, we went back to the Greek and looked it up, and it refers to a house. Another indication that Jesus had already been. It's already been a year or two since Jesus' birth. Okay. They saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and they worshiped him. Again, these guys coming hundreds of miles to a baby. Grown men coming to a baby, and they worshipped him. They bowed down. It was like, finally, they got to the end, and there it is. There is Jesus, the Messiah. And they worshipped him. What kind of, what great attitude and lifestyle of worship that was. Okay. Then they opened their treasure chest and gave him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. So for these are just normal gifts. These are gifts for a king. Obviously, gold is a big deal, still is today. Frankincense, I looked this up, actually was, of course, an incense. It was made with like vegetable oil, and it kind of had a twangy smell and slash like glitterness to it. I don't know, but that's what it said. And so they gave that to Jesus. And then the myrrh is something for embalmment. You would wrap this around a body, a person that passed. Okay, actually, it's believed that this myrrh was used to wrap around Jesus at his crucifixion after he had passed. And so these are gifts for a king, just showing how much they love him. Okay. When it was time to leave, they returned to their own country by another route, for God had warned them in a dream not to return to Herod. God taking care of his plan. You know, overall, you look at this whole story. It's just like, you know what? God's plan rules. God's plan wins in the end. As you look over these, there's these couple verses that we just talked about. There's three responses that I was looking at that kind of fits with how we look at Christmas today. Okay, so we have King Herod, who is troubled. He does not want a new king to come over and take his place. He's upset. He's offended. He doesn't like this. You have the Jewish chief and priests, and the Jewish chiefs, priests, and the scribes were indifferent. They're like, yeah, you know, whatever. This Messiah coming, yeah, that's cool. Sure, nothing new off our backs. And then you have the Gentile wise men were ready to worship. Now, when we look at Christmas today, which one do we fall into? We have people who we put up the manger scene in our yard. And man, they are stopping. You can't do that. That offends me. My response to that is good. Not saying that's godly, but anyway. Then you have people who are indifferent. You know what? I really celebrate Hanukkah and Christmas and everything, the Santa Claus, all the fun stuff that goes with it. I really don't care. I show up to Christmas service with it because that's the thing that we do. And then you have people who come to worship. That Christmas isn't just a shopping day. It isn't just a time to get together with family. It is a day that we give thanks and worship Jesus for taking this man form, coming to this earth, showing us how to live, how to be a Christian. And then eventually that he took the worst death I think you could take and being crucified on the cross for nothing he did wrong so that we could have eternal life. Are we here to worship God? People that are troubled, people that are indifferent, and people that are ready to worship. The three responses I think that were true there that are true today when it comes to Christmas. Now it's time to light the candles. So last week, which of course we didn't light it because we forgot to tell Terry to put it up. But anyway, the candle of hope. And this week, the candle of peace. Let's keep reading. After the wise men were gone, an angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream. "Get up, flee to Egypt with the child and his mother," the angel said. "Stay there until you return, because Herod is going to search for the child to kill him." That night, Joseph left for Egypt with the child and Mary, his mother. And they stayed there until Herod's death. Some people believe it was actually just months that Herod lived after this. This fulfilled what the Lord had spoken through the prophet. "I called my son out of Egypt." Herod was furious. I want to stop and kind of dwell on that word a little bit. Furious. Some of you might think, okay, I am furious when my kids are pitching a fit in the store and they are driving me nuts. Or we're furious when the boss tells us to do something. When you look up this word and what Herod was like, and when it says that he was furious, it means he kind of lost everything. It's when your blood starts boiling and you really just stop thinking clearly. You know, when smoke comes out of your ears, right about then? No. But he forgot everything that he was about. And he was just filled with anger and mad. And he was going to do whatever it took to fix the problem. And the worst possible thing that you think could happen, he did. When he had realized that the wise men had outwitted him, he sent soldiers to kill all the boys around Bethlehem who were 2 years old and under. Another reason that that the wise men had came when Jesus was older, because it says 2 years and older. It doesn't say an infant. How sad and how sorry that would have been. Based on the wise men's report of the star's first appearance, Herod's brutal action fulfilled what God had spoken through the prophet Jeremiah. A cry was heard in Ramah, weeping and great mourning. Rachel weeps for her children, refusing to be comforted, for they are dead. What that would have been like to have been that. I have a child that's under 2 right now, and a boy. To think of a king who is a ruler to do such a thing. And to think all King Herod was trying to do was to get rid of Jesus because he saw him as a threat to his kingdom. Wow. What kind of anger and misery that must have been. And then I like this in verse 19. It says, when Herod died. Again, they think it wasn't too long after Jesus had left that he had died. I wonder why he died. I don't know. But I believe that, I can imagine God wasn't too happy with him. When Herod had died, an angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt. Get up, the angel said. Take this child and his mother back to the land of Israel, because those who are trying to kill the child are dead. Verse 21. So Joseph got up and returned to the land of Israel with Jesus, his mother. But when he had learned the new ruler of Judea was Herod's son Archelaus, he was afraid to go there. Then after being warned in a dream, he left for the region of Galilee. So the family went and lived in a town called Nazareth. This fulfilled what the prophet had said, he will be called a Nazarene. We're going to stop right there. That's it for today. But as we look over this, I was thinking, I'm like, man, what are all the stuff that can apply to us today? First off, I think of the wise men. I can't help but get over what kind of attitude and lifestyle they had to want to come some hundreds of miles to worship a baby. And they didn't get in a car and go 80 miles an hour down the interstate. 10 miles was a day's journey for them. This was a long process. But yet they still did not care about that. They followed that star until it stopped. And there was baby Jesus. And what do they do when they get there? They worship him. Worship him. Do we come to worship Jesus? Is our lifestyle worshiping God? Someone put it like this, and it was so simple. Do you think you put a smile on Jesus' face? Like, man, that's pretty cool to think about. You know, those guys that traveled, the Magi that traveled so far, just to worship him. He gave them gifts. That's huge in my opinion. Or are we the ones that are kind of like Herod? I'm not saying that we're trying to take out Jesus, but maybe we get caught up in we're all about ourselves. We're all about what makes us happy. He wanted to be powerful. He wanted to have authority. And he did some very, very hard things to do that. I challenge you for this Christmas, we don't get caught up in all the hustle and bustle of Christmas. Because it's really easy to do, even especially for people like me. There's all these parties and events and Christmas parties and speaking engagements. Is that, we need to really sit down. And I challenge you as families to do this when you gather for Christmas. Is to sit down and just give a time of worship, prayer, thanksgiving for what Jesus did for us. He didn't have to take the form of man to come to this earth and show us how to live. And then to end it by taking the worst beating that he could possibly take. But he did. And we should be grateful for that. So the worship team's going to get ready to come up here, and we're going to close with 2 songs. Let's bow our heads and pray. Father in heaven, Lord, I just want to thank you and praise you for being the God that you are and for loving us. Father, for sending your Son Jesus to die for us. And Father, and how for Christmas we celebrate the birth of Christ. And Father, what an amazing time that was. Just to read those verses, Father, and to see that, and to see what you did, Father, and what had to take place. And Father, that your plan never failed, that it continued just like you had wanted. And Father, I just thank you for that we can read your words. And I pray that as we continue to go back to work tomorrow and back to school and back to family and friends, Father, I pray that we will have, that we will be different in a way that we can be honoring to you. Father, that we can be little Christ, what Christian stands for. Father, I pray, just as we continue getting closer to Christmas, that we won't take for granted what you did and get caught up in everything. I pray that it will be just a time of worship. We give you praise and glory in Christ's name. Amen.